John Mercer's life as a respected ICE agent came crashing down in a single night when a routine drive with his kids turned into a shocking DUI arrest, leaving his career, family, and reputation in ruins. John Mercer had built a reputation over more than a decade as an ICE agent, someone who could be relied on in any high-pressure situation. He was respected not just by his colleagues but by the people in his community, who often described him as calm, disciplined, and trustworthy. His life seemed orderly, a picture of stability, a steady job, a comfortable home, and 2 children who adored him. Emma, his 10-year-old daughter, was bright and curious, while Luke, 8, was energetic and always asking questions about the world. Their lives revolved around school, sports, and weekends that John carefully planned to spend with them. Despite the polished exterior, there were cracks in Mercer's life that few noticed. The long hours at work, the stress of constant decision-making, and the pressure of being an officer in the public eye had begun to weigh on him more than he let on. At night, when the house was quiet, he would sit alone in the kitchen, staring at paperwork or scrolling through his phone, trying to forget the tension building inside him. He had learned to hide it well, wearing the mask of competence and control. Friends and neighbors only saw the disciplined agent and loving father. They did not see the subtle signs of anxiety, the restless pacing, or the occasional glass of wine that Mercer told himself was just to unwind. On a crisp autumn evening, Mercer's life seemed ordinary. The sky was tinged with shades of orange and pink as he picked up his children from soccer practice. They chattered excitedly about the game, laughing and recounting their small victories. John smiled, nodding and encouraging them, even as a quiet exhaustion tugged at his mind. He strapped them into the back seat of his truck, checking the seat belts with practiced precision. From the outside, it was the scene of a normal family routine, safe and mundane. Yet, beneath the surface, tension lingered. The stress of the day, combined with unspoken personal struggles, created a dangerous mix that no one could see. Mercer started the engine, unaware that this ordinary drive would soon spiral into a moment that would change everything. A single decision on the road, fueled by hidden pressures and impaired judgment, was about to turn the life of a respected agent into a story that would shock a community and make headlines. As John Mercer drove his truck along the winding roads that led home, the cool autumn air seemed to do little to clear the fog clouding his thoughts. His children, Emma and Luke, sat quietly in the back seat, unaware of the subtle danger creeping into the evening. Mercer's mind drifted between the day's work and personal worries, each passing thought slowing his reactions without him even realizing it. The familiar roads, usually a comfort, began to feel oddly challenging, each turn demanding more focus than he could provide. The alcohol lingering in his system made it difficult to gauge speed or distance. Mercer didn't notice the way his truck drifted slightly in its lane, the tires brushing against the shoulder more than once. A sudden curve approached, sharper than he expected, and the truck responded to slowly. For a fleeting moment, the vehicle fishtailed, sliding perilously close to the guardrail. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, his pulse quickening, but the danger seemed distant in his clouded mind. Unbeknownst to Mercer, a local patrol unit had received a call about a vehicle weaving unpredictably along the same stretch of road. Officers followed discreetly, watching as the truck swerved from side to side, documenting each risky move. The tension inside the patrol car was palpable. They knew the driver could be intoxicated, but they had no idea there were children in the back, or who he was. Every second felt critical as they considered the safest way to intervene. Mercer continued, thinking he could make it home without incident. The kids' laughter and chatter from the back seat added a surreal contrast to the danger unfolding. Each turn of the road brought them closer to potential disaster, yet he remained unaware. The officers, now positioned behind him with lights off, prepared for a moment that could escalate in seconds. Then, as Mercer approached a particularly sharp bend, the patrol car activated its lights, signaling him to pull over. Panic flashed across his face as the reality hit him, and for the first time that evening, he fully recognized the risk he had placed himself and his children in. The truck slowed, tires crunching on gravel, as he guided it to the roadside. In that moment, the ordinary drive home transformed into a critical turning point, one that would unravel his carefully maintained image and thrust him into a storm of legal and personal consequences. When John Mercer finally brought his truck to a stop on the side of the road, the flashing lights of the patrol car reflected off the windows, creating an urgent, almost surreal scene. His heart raced as he realized the situation had escalated far beyond a simple mistake. Officers approached cautiously, their training evident in every movement, but the sight of Mercer at the wheel with his children in the back added a heavy weight to the moment. Emma and Luke looked on quietly, sensing something was wrong, but unable to understand the full danger they had narrowly avoided. The officers asked Mercer to step out of the truck. His movements were tense and unsteady, revealing the effect of the alcohol he had consumed. A series of field tests quickly confirmed what the officers already suspected: Mercer was intoxicated. The shock wasn't limited to the DUI itself. It was intensified by the presence of his children, innocent and vulnerable, who had been unwitting passengers in a situation that could have ended in tragedy. The arresting officers maintained their composure, but every step of the procedure was heavy with the realization of how close disaster had come. News of the arrest spread rapidly. Local reporters arrived on the scene, capturing images of the truck and the flashing lights, and neighbors watched in disbelief. The community struggled to reconcile the image of a disciplined, respected ICE agent with the man now being led away in handcuffs. Conversations that once praised Mercer's dedication now included whispers of shock and disappointment. Parents worried for their own children, questioning how someone entrusted with the law could place his own children in such danger. As Mercer was booked, details of the arrest were recorded meticulously. The charges were severe: driving under the influence and child endangerment. Both carried legal consequences that could alter the course of his personal and professional life. The arrest was more than a personal failure. It was a public spectacle, a moment that stripped away the carefully cultivated image of control and responsibility. Even within the police department and ICE, reactions ranged from disbelief to concern. Colleagues struggled to understand how someone trained to uphold the law could so recklessly endanger lives. Mercer's case quickly became a talking point, a stark reminder that no badge or title could protect someone from the consequences of poor decisions. Behind the flashing lights and official paperwork, the most tragic element remained unseen by the public: the quiet fear and confusion in the eyes of two children who had come within moments of unimaginable harm. After John Mercer's arrest, the investigation began in earnest, revealing layers of his life that few had ever seen. Initially, the focus was on the DUI and child endangerment charges, but as authorities delved deeper, unsettling details emerged. Internal records from ICE indicated that Mercer had previously faced warnings related to alcohol and workplace behavior. These incidents had never reached the public, quietly resolved through internal counseling and admonishments. For the community, this revelation added a layer of shock. They had trusted someone whose private struggles had been hidden beneath a polished exterior. The investigation also examined Mercer's personal life. Friends and neighbors recounted glimpses of stress and tension they had previously dismissed as ordinary adult worries. Long hours at work, restless nights, and occasional moments of irritability now took on new significance. The picture that emerged was one of a man grappling with pressure, trying to maintain control, and masking vulnerabilities that ultimately contributed to the night of the DUI. Meanwhile, legal proceedings moved swiftly. Prosecutors emphasized the danger posed to the children, the breach of public trust, and Mercer's position as a law enforcement officer, which made his actions particularly serious. Child welfare agencies reviewed the situation, interviewing Emma and Luke in age-appropriate ways to assess the impact of the arrest. The emotional toll on the family became clear. Even beyond legal consequences, the incident had shaken the foundation of trust between father and children, a bond that would take years to rebuild. Media coverage intensified. Local news outlets ran stories highlighting the dangers of impaired driving, particularly when children are involved. Mercer's colleagues faced uncomfortable questions, and public scrutiny weighed heavily on the department. Social media amplified the story, with residents expressing outrage, disappointment, and concern. Every new revelation about past warnings or private struggles fueled the conversation, painting a picture of a man whose public heroism contrasted sharply with private recklessness. Behind the headlines, Mercer confronted the reality of his choices. The arrest was no longer an isolated incident. It had exposed vulnerabilities, past mistakes, and the limits of his judgment. Friends and family watched as he faced consequences that extended far beyond legal penalties. The story transformed from a moment of crisis on a quiet road into a cautionary tale, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and even those entrusted with the law are not immune to the consequences of hidden struggles and poor decisions. The aftermath of John Mercer's arrest cast a long shadow over his personal and professional life. The legal process moved forward, and the consequences were severe. DUI charges with child endangerment carried heavy penalties, including potential jail time, fines, and mandatory counseling. Beyond the courtroom, Mercer faced the erosion of trust in every area of his life. Colleagues questioned his judgment, neighbors looked at him with suspicion, and even friends who had once relied on him struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the one who had endangered his own children. Custody arrangements for Emma and Luke changed quickly. Authorities sought to ensure their safety while the investigation and trial proceeded. The children, once carefree and trusting, had to navigate a new reality where their father's decisions carried tangible consequences. The ride home that had once been routine became a memory tinged with fear and uncertainty. Friends and family rallied to provide support, but the emotional scars left by the night of the DUI were visible, subtle, yet persistent, shaping the children's sense of security and trust. Mercer's career, once a symbol of discipline and authority, suffered irreparable damage. Internal reviews led to suspension and eventual termination, a stark reminder that no badge or rank could shield him from accountability. He was forced to confront the full extent of his actions, understanding that professional respect and personal responsibility are fragile and easily shattered by one reckless decision. Colleagues who had admired him began to see him as a cautionary example, a reminder that private struggles, when ignored or hidden, can have devastating consequences. The media coverage lingered, emphasizing the broader lessons of Mercer's choices. News stories highlighted the dangers of impaired driving, the responsibilities parents bear, and the importance of addressing personal struggles before they escalate into public crises. Mercer himself became a symbol, not of heroism, but of the human cost of misjudgment. Friends, neighbors, and even his former colleagues reflected on how appearances can be deceiving, and how someone who seems steadfast and disciplined can still falter in ways that affect innocent lives. In the end, the story of John Mercer was not just about a DUI. It became a tale of accountability, consequences, and reflection. For the children, it was a lesson in resilience. For the community, it was a cautionary example of the thin line between trust and betrayal. For Mercer, it was a moment of reckoning, a painful realization that even the most respected figures are vulnerable to mistakes, and that the consequences of those mistakes can echo far beyond a single night.